Welcome to the Tim Booker channel, where wisdom is worth sharing. Wishing you an enjoyable listening experience. Today, I'd like to share a book with you titled The Attention Merchants, with the subtitle, The Epic Scramble to Get Inside Our Heads. In one sentence, this book explores how businesses compete for our attention in the unseen world. The author of this book is Tim Wu, a professor at Columbia Law School. I recommend The Attention Merchants because the pursuit of attention underlies all commercial activities. Understanding how businesses vie for attention is essential to grasp the essence of modern business competition. A person's time is limited, and all business activities fundamentally aim to capture the time of ordinary people. This book primarily covers three key points. 1. Vulgarity is the starting point for capturing attention, and the media is inherently sensational. 2. To control attention, a three-way game ensues between the media, advertisers, and the audience. 3. With the rise of the internet, the battle for attention intensifies, leading us into challenging times. Now, let's dive into the first point. Vulgarity is the starting point for capturing attention, and the media is inherently sensational. Many people believe that the media can promote social progress and democracy, even having the power to bring down presidents. However, this notion of the media being grandiose is a beautiful illusion. Let's explore how the media came into being. The commercialization of human attention began in 1833 when New York had a population of only 300,000. A newspaper in New York was priced at 6 cents, making it a niche market that most people couldn't afford. A 23-year-old named Benjamin Day decided to start his own newspaper, the New York Sun, but he sold it for only 1 cent. His competitors were baffled because 1 cent couldn't even cover the printing cost. Was he crazy? Far from it. Benjamin Day had no intention of making money from readers. He aimed to increase circulation through low prices and then profit from advertising. It's important to note that there was no concept of advertising back then. Advertisements in newspapers were mixed with news, and there was no clear distinction. Benjamin Day transformed these small notices in the newspaper into eye-catching advertisements. He even offered some businesses free advertising in the New York Sun to attract their attention and then charge them once they saw the benefits. This strategy was highly successful, and within a year, Benjamin Day's newspaper became the largest in New York. The original newspapers aimed to earn money from readers, but Benjamin Day's strategy made readers the product, and businesses the customers. He attracted readers' attention and then sold this attention to businesses. In essence, Benjamin Day was an attention merchant. This may sound familiar, much like what figures such as Mark Zuckerberg and Twitter do today, right? Indeed, Benjamin Day was the pioneer of the internet mindset. The New York Sun was the first true mass media outlet in history. Even the concept of public opinion was born thanks to Benjamin Day, and he even created the position of full-time reporters. People were curious about stories related to lawsuits, so Benjamin Day assigned someone to follow the courtroom proceedings daily and publish these records directly in the newspaper. This was the earliest form of professional journalism. Benjamin Day was not only the first to discover the resource of attention but also the first to realize that this resource was in high demand. At the time, competitors quickly emerged, but the attention of readers was limited. How many newspapers could New York accommodate, you might wonder? The Attention Merchants explains that human attention has two key characteristics. First, you are constantly spending attention, and it's use it or lose it, you can't save it for later. So, businesses have ample opportunities to compete for your attention. However, secondly, the human brain is highly skilled at ignoring information. In the actual information you receive, the vast majority is ignored. The more familiar something is, the easier it is to ignore. This means that bombarding readers with information doesn't win their attention. Additionally, the human brain quickly adapts, and even highly interesting content can become familiar and thus be ignored. Hence, the attention business is challenging. You must continually innovate and provide readers with new stimuli to maintain their attention. The most direct strategy is to move towards the lowest common denominator. For example, when the New York Sun was first launched, it published sensational content that people loved, such as news about suicides and family disputes. As competition intensified, newspapers started offering even more sensational content. Some even specialized in reporting violent deaths and provided graphic descriptions of the bodies. As time went on, there was a competition for death sensationalism, somewhat resembling the feuds between celebrities on social media today. This approach was well received both in the past and in the present. Later, fake news that underestimated the intelligence of readers started to emerge. For example, the New York Sun once published a story claiming that astronomers had discovered advanced telescopes capable of observing highly intelligent creatures living on the moon, more advanced than humans. Such news stories began to surface. Consequently, the battle for attention escalated from one-dimensional text to two-dimensional images. In the 1860s, Paris saw the emergence of a poster artist named Jules Cheret. His artwork was large advertising posters posted on the streets of Paris. The success of these posters depended on their ability to capture the attention of passers-by. Cheret creatively realized that the characters in the posters shouldn't stay still, they should exude an energy that makes it seem like they are about to burst out of the frame. Artists quickly discovered elements that could attract attention, including movement, color, and the presence of people or animals, such as scantily clad women, cute babies, or monsters. In summary, the media and advertising industry initially followed a sensational and vulgar path. As attention merchants, the first rule is to compete for attention through vulgarity, and the second rule is to maintain attention with even more vulgarity. So, the first point discussed here is that sensationalism is the starting point for attracting attention, and the media has been sensational from the very beginning. Now, let's delve into the second point. To control attention, a three-way game unfolded between the media, advertisers, and the audience. As we mentioned earlier, the attention merchants, with Benjamin Day as a representative, embraced vulgarity as their strategy. This approach escalated, quickly leading to resentment among readers and viewers. When people realized that these media outlets were attracting their attention solely to exploit the value of their attention, it created a feeling of being manipulated. This situation was detrimental for both advertisers and the media. The Paris municipal government swiftly implemented restrictions on explicit posters, specifying that such posters could only be displayed in designated areas and levying high taxes on them. In less than a few decades, attention merchants faced creative obstacles. From then on, a battle for attention ensued between audiences, advertisers, and the media. This became a historical narrative of harvesting, resistance, and improvement. At the beginning of the battle, advertisers had full control over television and the audience. Take television, for instance. In the 1950s, it was a period of significant television development in the United States. In 1950, the household penetration rate for televisions was a mere 9%, but by 1956, it had surged to 72%. However, early television sets were very expensive. When adjusted for today's prices, they cost between $2,000 and $5,000 each. Watching TV was initially an elegant activity. People would sit together as a family, in complete silence, engrossed in watching television, often turning off the lights. At that time, people regarded the images on the screen as something of a miracle, instilling a sense of awe. The audience willingly offered high-quality attention, much like sheep ready for the slaughter. With such an audience, advertisers took full advantage. Early television programs were exclusively sponsored by a single brand. For instance, the first television news program in history was sponsored by Camel cigarettes and was known as Camel News. Since these programs were entirely dominated by advertisers, there was no room for other cigarette brands, no anti-smoking symbols, and certainly no mention of the link between smoking and cancer. In fact, in 1952, there was already substantial evidence linking smoking to cancer, but you can imagine that such news was impossible in Camel News. Under such circumstances, objectivity and impartiality in news were absent. Given the receptive audience, advertisers didn't need overly sophisticated ad content. Initially, they primarily conveyed the advantages of their products in a straightforward manner. Later, they introduced a technique known as the unique selling proposition, USP, emphasizing that their product could solve a problem that only they could resolve. Print advertisements took this a step further, turning non-issues into selling points. For example, an advertisement for chocolate beans claimed, "dissolves in your mouth, not in your hand." This was an example of creating a selling point out of thin air. Further along the line, advertisers began delving into the audience's subconscious. Marlboro, a brand known for its soft-tasting cigarettes initially designed for women, launched a TV ad with a Western cowboy theme. This transformed the product's image into one of masculinity. Savvy advertisers began treating every product as a symbol representing latent human desires. Even food was categorized as masculine or feminine. For instance, family sedans represented wives, while convertibles embodied mistresses. Television advertising evolved rapidly from realism to impressionism, reaching the pinnacle of the advertising world. However, advertisers soon found their heyday coming to an end. As time passed, media gradually gained more control. In the 1950s, the television industry witnessed the rise of NBC and CBS, the National Broadcasting Company and the Columbia Broadcasting System, two competing giants. As mentioned earlier, didn't we say that NBC allowed Camel News to be entirely dominated by advertisers? Well, CBS saw this and decided to launch its own news program, but they were determined not to let advertisers dictate it. They focused on producing independent quality news, first attracting the audience and then seeking advertisers. This tactic proved remarkably effective, with sky-high viewership rates. In response, NBC introduced a television series called I Love Lucy, with each episode reaching a 70% viewership rate. Subsequently, CBS rolled out a talk show. In 1956, one episode of this program reached an all-time high viewership rate of 82.6, records that remain unbroken to this day. As television progressed, television stations introduced morning and late-night programs to capture audience attention at different times of the day. NBC even pioneered the concept of large-scale live broadcasts, especially excelling in broadcasting American football games, eventually leading to the Super Bowl. As television programs became increasingly sophisticated, television networks gained more bargaining power. CBS pioneered a new advertising format, moving away from a single advertiser sponsoring a program to allowing multiple advertisements within a single show. This format remains in place for television advertising today. Advertisers didn't mind this change, but television viewers were less pleased. They had to get used to programs being frequently interrupted. A significant achievement of the 1950s television industry was the creation of reality shows, which we still enjoy today, like American Idol. The difference is that today's shows focus on talent performances, while the early ones revolved around quiz competitions. CBS was the innovator, introducing a quiz show called The $64,000 Question. Ordinary people participated, answering questions based on general knowledge that the public found enjoyable. Contestants started with $64 and doubled their winnings with each correct answer, but if they answered incorrectly, they received nothing. The show gained immense popularity, leading to numerous imitators. Initially, advertisers dominated the media and audience. However, media, by introducing captivating content, managed to turn the tables, gaining an upper hand over advertisers and audiences. But by the late 1950s, American viewers spent nearly 5 hours a day watching television. They gradually began to feel resentful. Watching programs loaded with advertisements for hours seemed absurd. Many people started to wake up from their obsession with television. Around this time, a high-tech company introduced a weapon against TV advertisements, the remote control. While it couldn't block ads, it had two functions, mute and channel change. At that time, there were only 3 channels, but this tiny control over their attention marked the first step in viewers' rebellion. When an ad played, they would switch channels or mute it. TV networks began to retreat. During this time, an incident occurred. An audience member entered the backstage of a certain quiz show and discovered that a contestant had answers for the evening's questions written in a booklet. When this came to light, it caused an uproar. People realized that the competition was rigged for higher ratings, and viewers felt insulted by the manipulation. Simultaneously, people realized that television had become excessively commercialized. Everything seemed to serve advertisements, even children's shows, tailored for toy sales. In the 1960s, counterculture youth felt disillusioned with the commercial society, with television as their perceived enemy. This led to the television industry's adjustment. Idealistic individuals in the television world reappeared, creating educational programs with pure intentions. Finally, the United States had non-profit public broadcasting networks, NPR for radio and PBS for television. These networks relied on donations and minimal government funding to operate and garnered a solid reputation among intellectuals. With the introduction of remote controls, audiences could change channels, so advertisements had to become more captivating. The only option for advertisers was to produce TV ads compelling enough to keep viewers from switching channels. Even today, one of the highlights of watching the Super Bowl live is to see the new and exciting commercials. Audience backlash also led to the diversification of the media and advertising industry. In the 1990s, various specialized television networks emerged. Advertisers realized that media audiences weren't uniform, different demographics had distinct tastes and purchasing needs. Some even divided Americans into 40 types, believing these groups shouldn't watch the same TV channels. This gave rise to specialized channels like MTV, Disney, and Fox News, each catering to different demographics, even with varying political stances. Viewer choices expanded, but with the advent of the Internet era, audiences also began turning away from television. So, here is our second point, the grand three-way game between media, audiences, and advertisers, marked by a series of developments and adaptations in the television industry. Now let's discuss the third point in this book. With the rise of the Internet, the battle for attention escalated, and we entered the darkest era. Do you recall the time before the popularity of social networks, when personal blogs were all the rage? It was a pure and wonderful era, roughly before 2005, when it seemed like everyone was starting their blogs, and every individual had the power to express themselves, gaining increasing influence. People even hoped to change the world through their blogs, and indeed, many movements were sparked by the writings of amateur bloggers, causing corporations and governments to yield. Thomas Friedman, a columnist at the New York Times, believed the world had flattened. He asserted that a blog written by an amateur could have more influence than a mainstream media report. He argued that in the past, the world revolved around nations and companies, but now it was about individuals. However, we should understand that everything in the world is in constant flux, and even the best dreams have their waking moments. Going decentralized and unorganized, while good, didn't make money. To make money, you needed a central force to organize the power. From early amateur radio to later commercial stations, from loose social groups to tightly knit political parties, this was almost an immutable truth. So, it wasn't long before people sought to monetize blogs. In 2005, the Huffington Post emerged in the United States. It was a blog platform where anyone could create their blog. The platform offered editing and promotion services, using sensational headlines and captivating images to attract traffic and then selling the reader's attention to advertisers. The Huffington Post gained a massive influx of traffic, but it didn't translate into significant advertising revenue. Although there were ads on the platform, they were not of high quality, primarily focusing on dubious topics like diet pills, which held no appeal for major brands. In the past, advertisers sustained newspapers and television, but now they seemed unwilling to fund Internet content. Internet content found itself in an awkward spot. Traditional media with centralized news didn't make money, and decentralized blogs, although popular, couldn't generate revenue. Chatting was engaging but didn't make money. Lowbrow content was even more appealing but still didn't generate revenue. Throughout history, attention merchants never particularly cared about how they made money, but now, on the Internet, even if they knelt down, they couldn't make money. Before 2010, the only company that truly made money through online advertising was Google. Google made money without compromising its principles. Google's homepage contained only a search box and often returned search results without any advertisements. Ads were displayed only when they directly matched a user's search, and Google only made money when users clicked on those ads. This advertising model not only had integrity but was highly efficient. For advertisers, users searching for specific terms indicated a strong buying intent, making those clicks of the highest quality. Advertisers were willing to pay a premium for such clicks, and users, since they searched those terms, didn't find the related ads intrusive and were even willing to view them. It was a win-win, a great user experience. Following Google, Facebook also began to make money. In its early days, Facebook relied on likes for advertising, allowing various brands to set up their pages on the platform. This way, brands could identify their loyal users and happily serve them advertisements. However, even though Google and Facebook started making money, the user experience on most websites was quite poor. Floating ads, content clutter, it was akin to a market, and these websites weren't generating much revenue. Looking at the entire book, a clear pattern emerges in the history of attention merchants, technological progress driving cultural change. Each time a new technology emerged, attention merchants had to explore new ways of capturing attention. For newspapers and television, they quickly found profitable methods. However, with the internet, it took them many years to discover the right approach. This is perhaps because the so-called internet is actually a combination of various technologies. It required these technologies to mature before people of all ages spent their attention online. Now we know the two most lucrative businesses on the internet are search engines and social networks, with Google and Facebook being the respective titans. However, technology continues to evolve, and the adaptability of attention merchants is increasing. As long as the technology is available, they can quickly take a business to its pinnacle. For instance, after 2010, the widespread adoption of smartphones led to a potent combination of mobile devices and social networks, giving rise to a powerful tool, Instagram. Instagram is essentially a visual version of Twitter. While Twitter primarily relies on text, Instagram is all about images, and text is optional. On Instagram, you must post images, and text is secondary. On Instagram, you can share any images or videos, and your followers can like them. Most people share selfies, a phenomenon where not only leaders could have their images circulated in the past, like having their faces on currency, or later, Hollywood could promote the images of celebrities. Now, anyone can use their phone's front camera or a selfie stick to engage in the competition for attention. This provides an opportunity for regular people to become celebrities. They may not have acted, but their selfies can attract hundreds of thousands of followers. They can even collaborate with advertisers to promote brands. Some earn $1 for every like. On Instagram, regular people can also become attention merchants. This is one of the positive aspects brought about by the internet. On the darker side, lowbrow content has been taken to extremes. For instance, there's a news website called BuzzFeed, which represents the zenith of using lowbrow content to please readers. Most lowbrow websites focus on attracting clicks, while BuzzFeed concentrates on encouraging users to share. It doesn't rely on you coming to them, it cares if, after visiting their site and reading an article, you're willing to share it with your friends. BuzzFeed's website receives 75% of its traffic from social networks. BuzzFeed utilizes an array of big data analysis methods to uncover the secrets of what makes people want to share content. For example, BuzzFeed has a lot of content about kittens and puppies since pets represent affection. If you want to describe your journey home, you need to focus on the interaction with your pet. But if you want to write about a serial killer, you need to highlight how they mistreat animals. Such content represents the lowbrow of the modern era. BuzzFeed caters to the desire of people to be cute and show affection. If everyone's attention is focused on such trivial news, who will pay attention to serious topics? Many argue that BuzzFeed's style of news is the internet's downfall, posing the biggest threat to real news. As mentioned earlier, the news that seeks traffic through lowbrow content doesn't make money, and BuzzFeed doesn't make money either. Moreover, it sets a bad example. Now, even traditionally esteemed media like The Atlantic and The New Yorker are emulating BuzzFeed. What's even more concerning is that companies like Google, once known for "Don't be evil," and Facebook, which was initially averse to advertising, have changed. As publicly traded companies, they must produce strong quarterly financial reports, leading both companies to abuse advertising. In the words of the author of this book, even a Soviet spy, upon seeing the methods these companies use to misuse user privacy for advertising, would blush. In summary, the work pattern of all attention merchants is to harvest the audience's attention and deliver advertisements to them. Much of the negative aspects of the internet are also rooted in advertising. Therefore, in terms of the extent to which our attention is harvested, we may be living in the worst of times. So, with this, the content of this book is concluded, and let's review. Firstly, this book about attention merchants tells us that sensuality is where the battle for attention began, and media was seductive from the very start. Secondly, in the quest for attention control, media, advertisers, and audiences entered a three-way game. Lastly, with the rise of the internet, the battle for attention escalated, possibly leading us into the darkest of times. This covers all the content for today. Congratulations on finishing another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel. Give it a like and share it with your family and friends because wisdom is worth spreading, and it opens up a bright future. Thank you, and goodbye.